you wouldn't be surprised if London went to like a gray zone within the next week.
There's a gray zone?
Yeah, gray zone is basically just full lockdown.
Okay.
Red is like we still want things to be open, but we're putting a lot more restrictions in place.
Yeah.
And like making it so like, gyms can only ever have 10 people in the entire facility at one time, or same thing with like restaurants. And it just puts more conditions on.
Yeah. But gray is like,
just,
don't leave. You're stuck at home. Everyone hates you. Sell your shit on eBay.
Essentially, yes. That is the gray zone. Gray zone's like, hey, you remember March? Let's do that again.
Yeah.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is CineCasters Ultimate Timeline.
Hello, and welcome to CineCasters, the Ultimate Timeline, where we look at movies that probably were good, at least in the initial concept, but then in the execution somehow missed something. So here we are. We decided to take a look back at some of these movies and try to make them a little bit better through our own original ideas.
No, that's good. That was great. You were doing great. Yo, that's Danielson, and my name is Janglez, and that was his first time going through it. He's trying to read off a script and do it. So.
Well, I wasn't actually trying to read off a script. That was just me totally just going.
Oh no, it looked like you were reading off something.
No, I am not reading off of a script. I'm just looking at my own photo in the.
No, that was great, man. That was great.
Okay, awesome.
I usually just riff off something like that, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you just introduce. I mean, you're Danielson.
Yeah.
And I'm the Janglez, and today we're doing what movie?
We are going to be looking at the Polar Express.
The Polar Express.
Because it's almost Christmas time, and why not look at a movie that is just it's just so weird, but also so good in terms of like just how it could have been. Yeah, I don't know if good. That's the thing.
Weird movie. So this is first of all, like just in terms of CineCasters, this is unique because I have like everyone recording all the time right now. Mm-hmm. Because Nathaniel's off work, and I got you for right now, and I got Alyssa going, and I'm gonna see if I can get Justin in a couple times. So like episodes are going up like all over the place right now. So I have some episodes that are going to go up in January that are already recorded, and I have this episode which will actually go up in 2 days.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, because it's festive and holiday and needs to go up in a timely manner related to Christmas.
So it's like all over the place in terms of that. But so that's been really, really strange. But obviously, we're glad to have you on doing this. But you chose the Polar Express, so I'm going to start with why did you choose the Polar Express?
All right, so I chose the Polar Express because we were trying to look at we were trying to look at movies that were kind of meh, but could have been great.
Yeah, of course.
And I think a lot of the Christmas movies that I would have wanted to go through, I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about them.
Yeah, it's true.
So, for example, like Elf, I think.
Oh, I could do a whole thing. You wait.
Okay. Well, we can save that one for later. But like, I was thinking like Elf, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I really want to do that one. But then like the Muppet Christmas Carol, I have nothing bad to say about it.
Amazing.
No, it's just
amazing. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you have like A Christmas Story, which is it's kind of back in the 40s.
It's not my favorite. It is a classic.
Yeah, exactly. So
Miracle
I think
on 34th Street.
For sure.
I mean, we've done a lot this year just in terms of like getting some holiday movies out there. Last week we did The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, which was a really weird movie. Then next week we have 2018's The Grinch.
Okay, yeah.
Which will come out. But I have Nathaniel wants to do a whole episode on Elf. He really hates that movie. So, but yeah, okay. So the Polar Express, thoughts.
It was one of those movies. Yeah, like it's one of those movies where like I really like the concept and the premise of it. I think for Christmas time, these kinds of movies where they're like they really want to lean into the magic side of things and like, Christmas spirit and kind of like the intangible, like the power of belief.
Yeah.
I think like which kind of is very present in Elf and like, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And it's just kind of like it's a classic element of any Christmas movie.
Yeah.
And I think just the idea of like kind of like kids who have issues being taken for a night off to go see Santa, and then they come back and they've learned some kind of a lesson. Yeah. I think is very much in line with that. I guess with that whole idea. Where you have it's kind of more about how do we help like kids who are just kind of like growing up in the world. It's imperfect. They become jaded or they just have these things about them. But then, through this whole experience, they're able to go and learn something that helps them to overcome or at least to become more self-aware of these things that will help them then grow as they become adults into the rest of their life.
So you're talking about like the last scene at the end where he like clips in like the lessons into the...
Exactly. Yeah. Stuff like that.
And I got that from that scene. Like I definitely got that from that scene, but for the most of the movie, like it didn't feel like it was leading up to that. Like that was the theme of the movie. Like, so my biggest problem with this movie is that it feels okay. So it's a book, right? It's a classic children's book, The Polar Express, and it's only like 15 pages long, maybe 20.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a short story.
And then they tried to turn it into like a full length film, and in order to do that, they like pulled out some pretty crazy stuff from the book. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they always not from the book, but it's the same story.
They always have to do that with movies, is that it's like which I honestly though, but like you have something like Lord of the Rings that's able to stay pretty true to the source material. So like I think the whole argument that you have to cut out things from a book to make a movie is like, I don't know.
But it's a much longer idea because it's not a children's story. So like I'm going to make my comparison. I love like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, like Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but the original and the best version of that is the cartoon from 1977. I want to say 1960. No, because it originally came out in 1968, so 1967. Yeah, no, 1978, something like that.
We can look it up afterwards.
I'll look it up afterwards. I have it somewhere.
We'll add a subtitle in.
The Grinch is that Chuck Jones, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas short, is only 20 minutes. Not like barely.
Yeah.
It's about 20 minutes.
It's really short.
And so I kind of feel like if they were going to do the Polar Express, because the animation looks pretty good for like 2006 or whenever this came out.
I think it was 2004 maybe.
2004, yeah.
Early 2000s.
It looks pretty good, like in terms of like 3D graphics. But what if instead they had been like, let's do a retelling of the story in like 3D animation and did like a 20-minute movie as opposed to a 90-minute full-length movie, and like focus more on telling the story and focus more on the animation and like making it look and feel magical, because I feel like there are parts of this movie where we're like following the ticket, which I'm like, this is neat visually, but it does nothing for the story. Like the story is told to us from the very beginning, and then it just sort of like meanders all over the place. Like I get there on the train, but then they're on this like glacier lake, and none of this has anything to do with, like, I don't care is what I mean. Yeah,
like there's just a lot about it that I wasn't sure if they were just trying to pad the runtime or if they were just trying to get experimental with some of the angles and kind of some of the shots. Like I thought, like, when you're following the ticket, and like I think mainly just with that sequence, or even just with like when they're when he's on top of the train, you just kind of have all the wind and everything.
It looks cool
and everything going. Yeah, like it looks cool, and I think it's interesting to see. Okay, like how do you, like, it's the visual aspect of it that's really cool, but again, it's not really following anything in the actual that's related to the actual plot. Like it's just kind of like, oh, and we're going to go on this scenic tour of the area because we need to show how this ticket's going to get blown off the train, but somehow then find its way in a Deus Ex Machina back into like somehow the vent, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna find it and catch it at the last minute. And just kind of like, well, what was the whole point of
like
all
the power of belief and the tickets are magical, but the point was supposed to be like this little kid gets on the train and is learning. He goes to the North Pole and learns about like the magic of belief if you can hear it through the bell, and like that was I just basically like told the story right there.
Essentially,
and
that's what we're getting to. That's what the whole thing is building up towards.
Yeah, everything else just feels really superfluous, and I want to have that magic, but like I actually really didn't like this movie.
Yeah, it was one of
the first time I saw it. I was like,
oh really?
Yeah, I saw it in 2000 and a while ago.
Yeah,
and I
remember. I think I went to go see it in theaters
Really?
at one point. Like, yeah, like because I remember first time I watched it, and like I remember the scene when they were going over the when the train was going over the edge.
Yeah.
Of like when they were in like essentially a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I remember going that and then being in theaters and seeing that on the big screen. And like 2004, me being like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And just like all the visuals and like dropping off the edge of the waterfall and everything. And it just kind of reminded me of the dinosaur movie.
Yeah.
Where again, you have the egg just kind of going off the edge of that. Like anytime you're going off the edge of a waterfall in a movie on a big screen, for me, it's just like I always get a bit of an adrenaline rush. But yeah, just that whole, I remember the visuals being in this movie, just being like, oh, okay, that was like really cool. And then, but like a lot of it just being like, yeah, like I remember being awed by the visuals, but then I think now watching it again, I was just kind of like, I don't really understand why this is here. Like I'm just kind of questioning, like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why is this here? Like we're trying to build towards something. Let's actually tell
Build
that
towards it,
story
yeah.
instead of just like going off on all these little side adventures and like.
Yeah.
Especially when they get to Santa Town and then it's like, or the North Pole, and then it's just like they
No,
go.
I kind of like Santa Town. That sounds way better
Oh,
than
yeah,
just the
yeah.
North Pole.
I don't know why they don't use that more. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's just Santa Town because the North Pole is always the North Pole.
The North Pole,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what were the things that you did like about
I think
this
the
movie?
thing that I did like the score. I did like the songs.
Oh, the music was unreal. And the actual
yeah.
singing, like I thought they were like, okay, they went out of their way for this. It sounds good. People sound good. Steven Tyler's
Yeah.
in this for some reason.
For sure, yeah. Like it was like the songs for it just really like it kind of reminded me a bit of like Elf almost, just kind of like just the crescendoing kind of like hopeful,
Yeah.
just kind of fun loving, like everything's about like life getting better,
Yeah.
yeah, like stuff like that. So I really liked the score. I really liked Tom Hanks being in it, and almost voicing every character. It felt like,
Yeah.
just because he just had that he has that very kindly dad voice that, like I don't know, I think like him being cast as Mr. Rogers in the movie that was about
cool,
about his life. He did a really good job with that.
So basically,
and
what you're saying is you want Tom Hanks to play your dad in a movie about your life.
If Tom Hanks was playing my dad in a movie about my life, I would be okay with that 100%. Like I think it was fun just kind of seeing his voice, like because he's the conductor, but then
He's
it's like
everyone in this movie.
He's literally everyone.
It's actually one of the things that I hated about this movie.
Yeah, it was kind of like, oh, we blew our budget on getting Tom Hanks into this movie, and then now
we were like, now he has to play
everyone.
I hated it. He played Santa Claus, the conductor, the homeless man, the father, as well as the narrator. Like Jesus, like there's only like 4 cast members in this whole thing.
I know, and they're all like the kids.
And they're all Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Tom Hanks and the kids, basically.
I do like that the hobo is playing the hurdy-gurdy. That's just a cool instrument. That's pretty cool. I didn't like that there was like a random dance break for the hot chocolate. It was like, this isn't relevant. I love the music. I kind of liked it
just for setting the whimsy of the setting, but
it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't do anything. So
I really liked. I wish they'd leaned heavier into this idea. How they talk about like little Billy, how poor people don't get Christmas.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what they were trying to get at with that.
Basically, he was saying like Christmas doesn't work out for him, and I think the idea was because he was poor.
Yeah,
but they don't really say that explicitly. So I was like, oh, okay. So like, I thought they were gonna do something with like the reason poor people don't get Christmas is because they're poor, and like Christmas should be for everyone, and it shouldn't be exclusionary. But like, and that's why he gets on the Polar Express, or why he has a ticket, because Santa was like, you need Christmas because you're poor.
Like,
and I laughed. Like, I don't know.
Like I think the whole oh, Christmas doesn't work out because he's poor. It's like, well, look at like there's so many Christmas stories where the whole premise is that the person is poor and it still works out because Christmas.
That's what I thought they were going to do.
It's all about the simplicity. Yeah, like I thought honestly that when they're saying, "Oh, Christmas doesn't work out for us," I thought that it was either because maybe either his dad or his mom had either left or died, or it was like a single parent household, or like someone close to him had like died on Christmas, so there was always that negative memory, or like maybe he was in foster care, or like
I just assumed he was poor. I don't know.
Yeah, like I think it just kind of seems like generic poor. Like it's just like what he is.
I don't even know if it explicitly says that. Maybe I was just reading into it.
I think, well, they said they're going to the other side of the tracks, and then they show up at his house, and it's just kind of like dark, and it's all by itself. And so I think the implication is that he's not very well off.
Yeah, I don't know, but then he's like kind Christmas. I don't know. It's hard to sell.
Is he living on his own? I don't know.
Yeah, I will say. I also thought it was weird that the elves were Jewish.
Yes, when Owen and I were watching that,
and we were just the fact that we're talking about like a very non-Jewish holiday.
Yeah,
and one of the elder elves is Jewish.
It seemed like that was the distinct voice template that they did for all of them.
Yeah, and I was like,
somehow they were all Jewish elves.
Very uncomfortable with the fact that the elves are like, or the head elf is Jewish. Like why do we need to have that be a thing? Like, that felt weird to me.
Did it sound like they were all like Jews from New York?
Like that classic. That's what I mean. Like
that kind of like that's kind of the
older. At least the older. The one who's in charge, the one who says like the word mashugana, which means
mashugana,
yeah. That was like that classic kind of like New York Jewish accent.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. I'm like, that made me really uncomfortable. More so than Tom Hanks being everyone. I was just like, why would that be the decision you make? Like,
yeah,
why would because then it brings up, like, I'm gonna read real fucking deep into this. Then
okay, go for it. Yeah,
it brings up issues. So the elves work for Santa.
Yeah.
Right? Do they work for like pay? Do they are they a different species? Are they literally just Jewish people who happen to work because they can work on Christmas and don't celebrate? You know what I mean? Like, are elves like a lost line of or a lost group of Jewish people that Santa like brought in and was like, yes, of course you can work for me, but like, and build toys for children who are Christian but not Jewish or secular.
And then do they get to celebrate Hanukkah in the lead up to Christmas? Because like I think Hanukkah takes place before Christmas. So.
Yeah, I think it started.
Is that why they're all like working so frantically to get everything done? Because they were celebrating Hanukkah before.
But that means they're probably working during Hanukkah.
Yeah, probably. It's like they don't get statutory time off.
They don't get time off.
Does Santa respect religious differences?
Well, I mean,
or accommodate for diversity, diverse hiring practices.
Yeah, clearly he has diverse hiring practices. I would hope.
Is it diverse if he only hires Jewish elves?
I don't know how to answer that. Maybe
that's the thing.
I think we need to send a strongly worded letter to Santa Claus, like
probably yes,
like our dear Santa letter, like letter to Santa Claus. Instead of being like, oh, I'd like a shiny red pickup truck, it'll be like, dear Santa Claus, I'd like to see a copy of your hiring policies. I think you need better HR department. Yours truly, the Janglez and Danielson. That's how that's gonna read.
Yes.
No, I just think because they'd be working during Hanukkah as well, and it just seemed like a strange decision to me to do that. Not that there's not anything wrong with like that, and I will say like the kind of Christmas that I think we're selling here, and I don't mean selling in like the explicitly capitalist way. I mean like that we're leaning towards in this movie is a secular Christmas. Like it's a Santa Claus, you know, kind of feel good Christmas. It's not your classic Christianity Christmas. That's not even like stated at all. Like it's just
they don't even call him Saint Nick or anything. It's just Christmas in terms of the way that like Macy's and Gimbels would have pitched Christmas.
That's why I say that secular Christmas. So like the fact that they are Jewish or have that New York Jewish accent, I guess, is less problematic. It just seemed strange to me like that would be the decision they would make.
Yeah, that's like it almost like I think like the elder elf almost sounded a bit like Joe Pesci, kind of in like Home Alone kind of a thing. Like that was kind of, I was watching that and I'm like, I know Joe Pesci is Italian.
He's not.
But
it wasn't Joe Pesci.
Oh, I know it was. I know it wasn't, but it was.
But like, that's because Joe Pesci has that same New York accent.
It's that New York accent. I think.
Yeah.
And I think even with the way that they had the design of the town, I think it was like trying to evoke that like either 20s, 30s, 40s kind of New York vibe.
Oh, see, I thought it was more like San Diego because the huge hills and whatnot, like that they go down when they're in the car. I got
or like San Francisco or something. San Diego.
Yeah, not San Diego. Yeah, one of the two. Like,
where like all the trolleys, like the steep hills. I was just like, where is this?
That's the vibe I got. Like I was like, I don't know how if the North Pole actually has hills. Like, to me, it probably doesn't. I'm pretty sure the North Pole is just a slab of ice.
It's pretty much flat. Like, yeah. There's like, unless you're going into like an ice cavern or you're like falling through like a
crevasse,
like a crevasse or something. Yeah.
I just no. To me, it was like this. Like I felt like very San Fran or San Diego. Like I was like the hills of the troll. I guess that's San Fran, not San Diego.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's how I feel. My biggest problem with this movie, like aside from the nitpicking, is that because it's so long, but they didn't want to like. I felt like when they set out to make this movie, they were like, oh, we're gonna recreate the book, but we want people to like feel like they got their money's worth. So like we're gonna make it a 90-minute movie rather than a short movie, but we're not going to change the story because then purists will feel like we've changed too much around, which I think is admirable, but all it does is mean we have like long segments where nothing happens.
Right.
That's my biggest problem with this movie.
Yeah, or it's like, or things are happening, but you're just kind of like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
here's another nitpick for you. Okay. Also, just the train sound they use when the train is slowing down. Yeah, like in front of the boy's house. I'm pretty sure it's a stock train sound. But it's also, I just want to throw this out there for all my music friends out there who are into progressive metal. That's the sound that is sampled that they use at the end of a song by a Canadian band Pomegranate Tiger in their song Sign of Ruin. They have a train slowing down. It's the exact same sound. They might have stolen it from the movie, like sampled it from
really?
The movie. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like exactly the same. And then my last little that's just a cool fact, but my last little nitpick is I don't understand why everyone isn't just like stranger danger. Like when they're getting on the train, they're just like, oh, you got on the train. Like it just feels to me like the only person who's offering supervision is this one conductor, and none of the kids are asking like, hey, I just got on a mysterious train with a stranger that I've never seen before. A strain. That's like stranger, but like train. Stranger. Anyway, with this conductor I've never met before, I have no idea. I've been told that it's going to the North Pole, but I have no idea. Like, whatever happened to stranger danger? Like, don't let mysterious men in vans take you away. Yeah. But if it's trains, it's fine.
But it's a magic train because there were no tracks that it needed to go on to their residential.
That only makes me more suspicious.
Yeah, it's weird that there wasn't any like, none of the kids were like it seemed like Billy was like the one who was like, no, suspicious. I'm not getting on this thing, and then eventually he was just like,
freak ass kidnapped train, get out of here.
But then he was just like, but I also kind of want to know, and then he just started booking it in his galoshes.
But free hot cocoa, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Freedom, like hot cocoa, that's like
free pretzels on a plane.
Yeah. So you get pretzels on a plane? What kind of planes have you been on?
Or you get crackers, yeah.
Oh, you mean like, I thought you meant like soft pretzels. I was like, yo, I want soft pretzels.
No. These are like little hard pretzel things you get from like Rolled Gold or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just some mass-produced thing. It's just, they used to give peanuts, but then, allergies. And people dying and anaphylaxia kind of a thing.
And now they give you like 3 pretzels crackers. And a handful of salt. Good luck putting that shit together on your own.
Basically, yeah. I found for me another thing that was it was just offsetting was just the animation style. It was just too realistic but it was like, it was trying to be so close to being realistic, but it was like that
Uncanny.
It was Uncanny Valley. I think one was saying was like it was kind of like the Beowulf animated one that they did, where it's like you think it's live action, but then it's not, and it's just like your brain is just like, this is real, but it's not real. And like I was just like I was like, okay, like I really wish that because that they would have done something more like Disney, where it's like when they go for the more like realistic humans, they always make some of the proportions off in order to make it so that your mind knows that this is a cartoon. So that's why their eyes are always so big, or like heads are out of proportion, or just like they're not really supposed to be.
Also, it just makes them look cuter.
Exactly. Yeah. So they want, they want them to look cuter, but at the same time, it helps your brain accept that this is just an animation and it's not real life.
Yeah.
But I think when you're trying to get as close to reality without it, because like at that point, why didn't they just do this as live action? Why did they do it animated?
Actually, if they did this as live action but kept the same kind of like whimsy and cheer and like had the big like that, I mean, it would have been awesome. It would have looked cool. It would have been awesome.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it would have been cool. And you can like, there's like even like 2004. There's still like CGI was still like I think Lord of the Rings
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
So. Well, yeah, Lord of the Rings was one of the first movies to start using CGI. But
I just figured out why they didn't do that.
Why?
Well, I mean, then Tom Hanks couldn't play everyone.
Well, exactly. Yeah, we would know that it was Tom Hanks being everyone. Yeah. But
oh, that's so weird.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But yeah, I found the animation style was just
a little weird. It is a little weird. It looks good. It's fluid. Like they don't look wooden.
Yeah. Like it's not bad.
But it is a weird kind of choice where you're like they look real but in a weird way.
Yeah, you're just
particularly the children. The children kind of look like dolls almost.
Yeah, like, and then you're going through a train car of creepy dolls, and you're just like,
I'm going back to my kidnap train thing. Kidnap me and bring me to Santa Francisco. Yeah,
Santa Frisco.
Okay, yeah. So I think we should get into pitches now. But I wrote the saddest pitch I've ever written for cinema.
Are you going for sad?
Oh man, I cried while I was writing it, so I might crack up while I say it out. So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
No, I want you to go first because I want to hear this.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Because mine's definitely not sad, so I really want to hear.
Sad all right, so you can bring us up at the end. Mine is the saddest thing I've ever written.
It'll be like the roller coaster where we go down and then we'll just come back up. Maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see.
So mine is a little girl is sitting on her bed, and it looks to be what her older brother is reading to her. And she asks a question, and the two start arguing. And she begins coughing. This is all while we're zooming in. She begins coughing, and he helps her out, like drink some water. And their parents come in, and we can see like this family's fairly wealthy from the size of their house. This is also back in time, like we're in not in present day, and not in 1990 or 2004 or whatever. We're talking like early 1900s. Maybe even late 1800s.
Ooh, okay.
So she begins coughing and whatnot, and we see like the parents walk in, and they scold the boy for exhausting the little girl. So the parents then put the little girl to bed, and they reassure her that Santa will come in the morning because she's very excited. But we can see she's very weak. So then she's excited to have Christmas, but her parents are very worried. So then they go to the boy's room next door, and they again scold him. They're like, why would you tell her that Santa might not be real? Like, she's really looking forward to Christmas. And the boy's like, well, I'm not sure. Like, if I believe, like, all the facts don't line up, but I want to believe. And they're like, okay. All right, well, like, if you want to believe, it's all up to you. You just, don't ruin it for your sister. Like, and so the boy then decides when his parents leave the room that he's going to stay awake and listen to the sounds for Santa, like the sleigh bells and whatnot. He wants to believe, but he's not sure. So he's going to stay up and listen. So in the night, while he's still waiting, he hears a sound, but it's not the sleigh bells. Instead, it's a train. And he's like, what? Am I hearing a train? Is that right? And he hears his sister get up because she's woken by the same sound. And she's like going down the stairs very slowly, and he like follows her, and he's like, what are you doing out of bed? And she's like, I heard something. And he's like, I thought I heard something too. She's like, it sounded like a train. And he's like, yeah, but there's no trains near here. So then right outside, and they open the front door, and right outside is like a train in the middle of the street, and the sister walks right up, and the conductor asks for a ticket, and the little girl reaches into her pocket and pulls out a ticket. And the boy is like, whoa. And he reaches into his pocket, but there's no ticket. And so the girl gets on the train. Little sister is what I called her. And the conductor stops older brother and says, you don't have a ticket, you can't get on the train. And he's like, well, my little sister has like fits and spells, and sometimes she needs someone to look after her. And the conductor is like, I don't think, you see, this is the Polar Express. It's really only for kids who really need Christmas. Right? And the boy is like, well, I'm really worried about my sister. And his sister's like, yeah, my brother needs to come with me. Like, I need someone to look after me. And the conductor's like, okay, but don't tell anyone this is what's going on.
Okay.
So on the train, the brother and sister, little sister and older brother meet lots of different children. They talk to another girl who tells them this Christmas is the first time that their father won't be there. And then the train stops near the little sister and older brother's house. And, it lets on. We see a boy who's trying to get on or wants to get on, and he's clearly less wealthy, like he's poor. So at first, the kid looks very scared. He's too scared to get on. He says, "No, I don't want to go. I don't want to go." But then when the train starts moving, all the kids wave at him and say bye, and he's like, "Oh no, I do want to get on after all." So little sister, older brother, and this new girl help the boy to get on. And once he gets on, he's like, "Oh, my name's Billy, and I live here in this town, and this is." I live here in this town, and this is where I and little sister and older brother are like, oh, we live in the same town. Like this is how close we live. That's super cool. Like, but then they're like, why would you not want to get on? And he's like, well, I was frightened. I was frightened to get on the train, but then I saw how everyone looked, and it was warm inside, and I changed my mind. But I do wonder where we're all going. So now the four of them, older brother, little sister, the other girl, and Billy, all start asking around to see where they're going. And people think they're going, other kids think they're going to the North Pole, but older brother's not convinced. He's like, yeah, but like nothing's at the North Pole. There's no life. There's no anything. So he begins, like he's like the oldest of the kids there too. And so they start to believe him. And then the conductor returns and he's like, what's all this going on? You don't think we're going to the North Pole? And he finds out older brother is the one responsible. And he's like, you have to go sit in the luggage car. So in the luggage car, older brother is all alone. And he finds he thinks he's all alone, except there's an old homeless man there, a vagabond. And he starts talking to the old man. And he starts talking about things like being lonely and sickness in the world and the loss of magic. And the boy is like, no, that's scary. I don't want to think about that. And so he decides to leave the luggage car. And so it's a long time, and some of the kids are starting to get restless because they're still not at the North Pole. And little sister is starting to get cold, so older brother wraps his house coat around her, or I guess what's the other term? House coat,
bathrobe.
Yeah. House coat is apparently a very Canadian thing. So his bathrobe around her, and the poor boy Billy takes off his sweater, and even though it's like torn and has a hole in it, it's like looks very warm. And he's like, "Yo, here, this will keep her warm too." And so brother and sister really appreciate the gesture, and she puts it on. So the conductor assures everyone that they'll be there soon. So finally they arrive at the North Pole, and the kids are elated. And little sister says, she's all like, "I told you, big brother, like we're finally here. Like this is real." They get off the train, and Santa comes out, and he says that each gift is special, and that this train, each gift that he gives us is special no matter what. But this train is for the little girls and boys who need Christmas the most this year, and that's why they're selected to come up here instead of him just going to them. Right. And so he looks at all the kids, and he says, "But one of you will get the first gift of Christmas." And he looks at all of them, and then he stops at older brother, and he says, "How come you don't have a ticket?" And older brother says, "Well, I was here to look after my sister." And Santa's like, "That might be true, and it is noble, but it's not the only reason, is it?" And then Santa waves his hand, and the homeless man appears. And he repeats the things about loneliness and sickness and losing belief. And then Santa waves his hand again, and we see that the homeless man is actually just a reflection of the little boy, of older brother. And it's all older brother's fears. And so the boy is he apologizes, but he says, he really wanted to know if Santa was real. And that's why he thought, if this does go to the North Pole, this would... And Santa looks around, and he's like, well, now you know this is real. And in some ways, maybe you needed this most of all. So then he's like, I'm going to pick you to be the one who gets the first gift. And so they walk inside. They go to a separate part. They walk inside, and Santa pulls out a gift, and it's a box that's wrapped in green wrapping paper with a red bow around it. Like a red ribbon. And he gives it to him. He says, "You can't open it until the morning."
Right.
But you can have it. And so he hands the boy the gift. And then he turns to the boy and says, I need you to remember something if you're going to take the gift. He says, Christmas is not what you get that makes it special, but what you have and what you are willing to give. And the boy's like, okay, that's interesting. So then he takes the present and the boy back outside, and they see all the girls and boys are playing. And Santa starts handing out all the gifts, and everyone's having fun and having a good time, and they're just playing. And the conductor says, all aboard, and a ticket appears in front of Big Brother. But he's the only one.
Oh,
and Big Brother wants to know what's going on. He's like, okay, it's time to go home, and I've got a ticket. And Santa explains that he's the only one going home on the train because instead of bringing presents to the children, you know, there are some children who need Christmas the most, and so they're brought here. And that's because the Polar Express is actually designed to bring all the little girls and boys who die on Christmas Eve up to the North Pole.
Oh.
And so the reason his sister got a ticket is because she passed away in the night.
Oh.
And she was brought up to the North Pole to have one last Christmas.
Oh, right in the feels, man. Right.
And so now he has a ticket and only he can go home. And so Brother is sad. He's like, yo, I don't want to leave my little sister at the North Pole, but she's happy. She's like, I got to spend another Christmas, a whole Christmas with you one last time. And we had this great adventure on the Polar Express. And so Big Brother gets back on the train and he's like crying, but he waves goodbye to his sister. And then he rides the train back home and he watches, he gets off the train and he watches the train leave and he walks back into his house. And then he realizes he forgot the gift that Santa gave him on the train. He forgot the green wrapped with the red bow on the train. And now he's even sadder. So he cries himself to sleep. And he wakes up with a start, and his parents are downstairs, and they tell him that they can't celebrate with his sister because she's passed on, and so they're all like basically crying in each other's arms. And then Mother says, it's not very Christmassy, but we can open gifts, and there was even a gift that arrived today, and it's the green wrapped present with the bow. And an older brother is sad, but they're like, we don't know who it's from. It's marked to you, but it's not from either me or Father, so it must be from Santa Claus. An older brother opens the gift, and inside he finds an identical sweater to the one the boy gave his little sister, except it's not torn. It's like brand new and warm and fuzzy. And Brother rushes outside, and he runs down the street in his pajamas, and he finds the family from the other little boy, like Billy. Yeah. He finds the family that was from Billy. And he sees like they're much poorer, and they're also there because Billy didn't come home. They're mourning the loss of Billy, who did not come back. He died that night too.
Yeah.
And then he sees that Billy had a younger sister as well, and he gives the sweater that he just got to the younger sister and gives it to the little girl. And then his parents show up and like, what are you doing? And he basically says, Christmas is not about what you get, but about what you have and about what you're willing to give. And we might not get to celebrate Christmas with little sister, but what we have is our memories of past Christmases. And that means a lot. And that means we have a lot. And that means I'm willing to give a lot. And that's the end. That is the saddest CineMasters I've ever done.
Man,
I cried writing it. I was like, oh my God.
That's very Dickensian.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like kind of like Tiny Tim dying in the alternate universe in a Christmas.
I thought about that. I was like, oh, this is very like alternate universe Christmas Carol. But I decided if we set it in a time where trains are, because I was also like, trains are a big deal back then. They're like a sign of progress, but also it means like dying of consumption, which is what I assume little sister died of. Would have been. It wouldn't have mattered if you were poor or if you were wealthy,
rich.
Right? Consumption,
anyone could get it.
Exactly. Anyone can get it. And so I was just like, but the biggest question to me that I asked is, why would Santa need the Polar Express? Like, he already delivers presents. Why would he need the Polar Express to bring those kids to the North Pole? And then it hit me. It had to be because the Polar Express is bringing the kids who passed away in the night and still wanted to celebrate Christmas up to the North Pole. Which I think is the saddest thing ever.
Yeah. I think looking at the Polar Express through that lens of it being kind of the the transition vessel. Like it's kind of like I think it's Chiron.
Yeah,
who
Chiron,
rows people across
the ferryman.
The ferryman who rows people across the river, across the Styx. I think that having the Polar Express be that for children who die on Christmas Eve, and it's just kind of like that transitioning from like dreariness of death kind of in real life to like the magic of like this Christmas night, and then just kind of like not really sure what happens to them afterwards, but like,
well, yeah, I wanted to leave that vague, but it was basically like, those children who die on Christmas Eve and still want to experience Christmas get to go to the North Pole,
right,
and then pass
maybe
on
they
wherever
they just whatever. Yeah, but they have that. It's kind of like that last moment of like life on Earth kind of thing.
Exactly.
Passing on.
Yeah, if I was going to add an addendum to this, I even might add like a thing where like the boy now does believe, like he does believe because of everything that happened.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know. I didn't want to go the Bell route, but I know it's a little darker than I was expecting. But I thought,
it's dark.
Like, let's make it
good
meaningful.
Dark.
Let's make it like
I don't think there's enough movies out there that like I think. For some reason, it's like I like A Christmas Carol because it's not afraid to show you the ugly side of like if you continue your life in this way, this is what it will inevitably lead to, and it's not just going to hurt you; it's going to hurt others as well. Mm-hmm. But then it gives more meaning to the happiness because of what he chose to walk away from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas I think a lot of things with now with Christmas movies and things like that, it's very much about just, Christmas is a happy time and we can't ever be sad. And if sad people are there, then it means that the whole point of the movie is to make sad people happy. Yeah. Like that's kind of like what it feels like with a lot of like Christmas movies nowadays, where it's just like, it's all about the happiness of the moment. Whereas I think sometimes what makes Christmas so meaningful is oftentimes because there's that darkness of life, but then in the midst of the darkness, there's that light that
there's
shines forth.
This light, this, and Disney, again, we've been talking about secular Christmas, right? Like this doesn't even have to be anything to do with faith. It just simply can be like this time of together. I mean, I refer to it as Decemberween, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because it's something different that means something different to me than quote unquote secular Christmas. But
for sure.
But it's the same idea, like this coming together in this light, even in the darkness.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think my version
darkness
is much more meaningful. I feel like it's more impactful because it becomes
I would agree.
This wealthy family and this kid who has it all, who loses his sister, but is still able to like and wants to do more for other people who are also going through the same thing as him, right? Like Billy doesn't come home and yet he still has a family who's grieving the same way that he and his family are. Older brother and his family. Yeah.
For sure.
Anyway, that's my pitch. Hit me with yours.
Nice. Okay. So mine, I decided to take it in a little bit of an interesting direction. Mainly keying off of the idea that Tom Hanks seems to be the voice of every character.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I was wondering, then I guess the kind of thing that I latched onto is like, what if Tom Hanks is the same character?
Like,
so yeah. So like, what if confused. Okay. So, so essentially how it starts, you start it with the narrator, Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Or
Tom
whoever
Hanks.
that is. Yeah. He's doing the opening narration, but it's this man who's sitting in like kind of like a big kind of wingback chair by the fire, who's like writing this book, who's like writing on like a journal or something, but like he's writing what would become the book, The Polar Express, essentially. Okay. But it's just kind of this man, and you don't really see a lot of him. Like you don't really see a lot of definitive features, but you just kind of see him just kind of writing
in a chair. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just kind of, that's kind of the opening, and that's kind of how you tell the story without always kind of opening the story. Cause it's more that Tom Hanks is the character that's recounting the experiences about what you're going to see. So he's talking about that, he talks about that night when, the Polar Express came. So then it transitions then to the kid, like the I guess the hero boy that they call him in the credits. I'm not sure what his name is, but they transition to the boy. in the house, and a lot of that stays the same. So you have the boy. He's like, it's clear that he doesn't believe in Christmas. Or that, no, not that he doesn't believe in Christmas. He doesn't believe in Santa Claus. Like, he notices the cracks in the facade. Like he's,
it's a conspiracy theory.
Essentially, yeah. And he's just like, he's getting to that point where he's just, he's outgrowing the belief in Santa. So, goes through that, goes to bed. The train comes, and then he kind of whisks him on board with the conductor. And so he gets on board and starts meeting and talking with some of the other kids. And so for like the know-it-all kid, this is like his 8th or 9th trip on the Polar Express.
What a little
which
shit.
Explains, I know, yeah, which explains though why he knows everything. Because it's just like because he's already been on the Polar Express so much, he's already familiar with it. And so he's just kind of like this, he's done this a number of times over the years. Because his whole thing, as we kind of learned through the movie, is that he needs to learn a lesson, but he won't ever. He keeps not learning it. So then every time Christmas comes, he's given a new opportunity to learn what that lesson is, but he hasn't figured it out yet. He hasn't figured it out. So interesting. Yeah, so he's going through that. So then that's kind of how you get to know a little bit more of the characters, and kind of how you get to know a little bit more about why they're all on there. And you're going to have some background kids that are just like, we don't care about them. They're just there to fill up space. Yeah. But then the other girl, the girl who struggles with leading and being confident.
Yeah.
Again, she's done this a few times already. This is like her second or third time. So the kid is like weirded out by all this, because it's just like, oh my gosh, like, why are these kids all here? But then
where's the supervision?
Exactly, yeah. And he's just kind of like, what the heck? Like, what? Why is this? But then he starts to realize that like he's actually the newest addition to the group in this to the group, and whereas all these other kids, they've already gone through that, and they're all on various times on the train, because they haven't yet learned what it is that they're supposed to learn about Christmas. So until they grow up and kind of grow out of it, they're just always, the train always comes back to get them every Christmas for them to come and
learn their
for them to relearn.
Lesson.
Exactly, yeah. And like, you'll have some kid, and like, they'll talk about some kids where it was like, oh yeah, this kid only showed up, like this kid kind of came and then we never saw him again, but like they don't really know why, but it's kind of like that. He starts to clue in, like he has more of an analytical mind. So he starts to clue into like, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to learn something here. But again, he doesn't know what that is. So that's kind of, so he's like, oh my, am I going to be caught in like this kind of loop or whatever? But so then as they're going, he starts to notice that the clocks, they never, like, he'll have been on the train for like a while, and like, I go through a whimsical musical number that doesn't mean anything, but just kind of helps build the magicness of the of course of the train, and just kind of just really leaning into kind of like, oh, it's like there's like this Christmas magic kind of a thing about it that really just kind of makes it like, just kind of like some weird things that like, like the fact that they can do this hot chocolate number and like nothing goes wrong. And it's just like, it's all number. Exactly. Nothing spills, nothing. It's just kind of like, I like that. Let's just keep it a little whimsical. And so it's like, he notices on the clock that like, or like when he gets on, like, he asks the conductor like, oh, like, shoot, like, what time is it? He gives him the 5 minutes to midnight. Yeah. Every time on the train and throughout the rest of the movie, he looks at the clock. It's always 5 minutes to midnight. So it's just like, or like he's starting to like, okay, like what's going on here? Why is like time essentially stopped? But like, or like, why does it seem like that? Like, we're going through this whole experience and time is passing, but like, the clocks just never seem to change. Like what's, like why is that? And so kind of go through, like, I'm kind of just thinking, cut out a lot of the extraneous bits about like, just kind of like, or like focus more of the time to be on the train itself. And like, so, and then have him be the reason that the girl loses her ticket. And then the conductor takes her off to the, off to like the back of the train or whatever. So that whole thing sets up for him to meet the hobo.
Oh yeah.
Who again so the conductor's voiced by Tom Hanks. Now this other guy is also voiced by Tom Hanks. So but then it seems like this hobo guy, he's also very much in tune with what this boy is thinking. Like it's almost like he's mirroring his own thoughts and ideas back to him in a lot of what he's saying. But it seems like he's just like his whole, like he never, like, he talks about how he can get on and off the train, but like he doesn't know anything past just being on the train. He's just always there.
Perpetually on the train.
Yeah, perpetually on the train. But then when the boy needs him, like, when the boy's trying to get up there, and then like the whole, like, he comes back to get him because he's like, hey, we're going to be going down the hill, and like, you're not going to have a lot of time here. I'm going to help you. It's like he shows up at like the point when he needs him. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, why is that? So then they go through all that, they get to the front, and then when he's talking to the conductor again after they get back to the front of the train, he tells him, it's like, there was like this guy, this ghost kind of a thing. Like, the girl falls off, and like, he's like, or that whole thing where the girl falls off the side, and then, they're all going to slide off, but then they're saved by this ghost hobo again.
Ghost hobo.
Exactly. Yeah. And so then he hears a conductor talking about how, there was this time that I almost fell off the train, but then there was this spirit or something that saved me. And then he's like, well, what did he look like? And he's like, well, I'm not going to tell, but he kind of has a bit of a knowing look in his eye that like, he's like, I think I know that you know what I'm talking about, but I'm just going to be a little,
but I can't say it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So then it's like, okay, so why, like, what the heck's here is going on? So the kid, again, it's a magic train, but things are getting weirder and kind of like things are getting weirder. And there's like all this stuff, like what's going on. So then they get to the North Pole, and like the whole bit about them going off and getting caught in the presence thing, factory thing, and all that. I was just kind of like, they could just go with the group to the
do we need this whole bit
to the square to like to wait for Santa, and throughout all this point, it's like the boy's just being confronted with so much that he doesn't understand, that he can't explain analytically. Like he can't explain using logic or reason. It's just and so throughout all this, it's like, with like all the elves and everything, and then they're like their absolute almost fanatic devotion to Santa. Like it's almost like a religious cult kind of a thing. Like just kind of that you see in the movie, it's kind of like, okay, why are they like so in love with this guy? Like, are there any of them that just don't agree?
That's Santa guy, not bad.
Exactly, yeah. Some of them just show up for work some days and they're just punching the clock. Like, why are they all
seem to be working for the weekend?
Essentially, yeah. Like, why are like what's going on here? But then they go, and then you kind of have that whole scene where they're bringing out the reindeer, and then they're bringing out the bells, and he can't hear the bells because there's still that thing he just doesn't really believe quite yet, and then the bell kind of breaks off, and then
I can't hear the bells, bright silver bells. They seem to say, "You go away."
Yeah, for sure. So he picks up the bell, and he has that moment where he's finally like, you know what? I'm going to take that leap of faith or leap of belief, where he's just against all odds. It's just like he's seeing everything. Like, he sees the reindeer flying. He sees the sleigh. He sees the impossible pile of presents. He sees what looks to be a man in a red suit with a beard and everything. And he's just like, he's confronted.
He thinks it's Satan.
Or
a man in a red suit.
Or Santa. That's
just joshing.
Yeah. And so then there's that callback. So throughout the movie, you have that whole seeing is believing. He hears it from the hobo. He hears it from the conductor.
Yeah.
And then finally now he's seeing it all. and he kind of is, and he's realizing, okay, maybe this is the point that like I need to choose to believe what I'm seeing, even though like in my mind I know this isn't possible, like this should not exist, and yet it does. So he chooses to believe, and then he finally can start hearing the bell, and then Santa shows up behind him, like he somehow knew that he was already going to be there. Like, okay, what's going on here? And then so you go through that whole scene where he hands them the bell, and then he goes around and he gives the reason why he's not choosing the others. That like this know-it-all kid still is like he still needs to learn something, but like I think the idea would be that the kid just needs to know, like he needs to learn selflessness because he's so selfish and so self-focused, but like that's why he doesn't get chosen, because he still hasn't learned that yet. Mm-hmm. The girls learn to become more confident in her leadership, and he's like, you know what? That's a better gift than I could give to you. So, you're good for that. Billy, he's learning the power of friendship or whatever. So
capitalism,
exactly. Yeah. So he doesn't get
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You need to have a reason why the power of friendship isn't good enough for him to get the first gift of Christmas.
Yeah.
Whatever. So then the boy, Santa chooses the boy to then give the first gift of Christmas.
Yeah.
And then he asks him, "What do you want?" And then throughout all this time, it's like he's hearing the ringing of the bells.
Yeah.
Like, the reindeer are moving and whatever. And that's like, and so then he asks him for one of the bells, and then Santa, first gift of Christmas, and gives him the bell. And so then they get back on the train, they go back, and then cut forward to kind of back to your narrator, where he's talking about all of this. And turns out that it's actually the conductor.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole time, so that Tom Hanks as the conductor has been the one who's telling the story.
Yeah.
And then kind of, okay, then here's where, then I'm like, I'm not sure if this is actually going to make any sense, but this is kind of
okay.
Where I went with this. So he's like, he finishes writing, and he's talking about, and like, you kind of go through that whole like Christmas morning, gets the bell, can still hear it. And then he talks about how he never stopped hearing the bells after that, even though with other people, they stopped hearing it over time.
Yeah.
And so he kind of finishes writing, like, and then and it's like you kind of cut over and you realize it's actually, it's Tom Hanks as the conductor. He has a conductor hat over him, and he's kind of in like a white undershirt and kind of the conductor pants. Yeah. Like he's kind of like half undressed,
half dressed
kind of a thing. And then so then he finishes writing, puts the book off to the side, then goes over to the wardrobe, opens that up, and then there's Santa's outfit there.
Oh. Whoa! So like Santa,
and then he starts putting on the outfit, and then like the mustache kind of becomes the white beard.
Yeah.
And then he becomes Santa. So
does that mean he was the boy too?
Yeah. So this is kind of where I was going with that.
Like Santa is everyone.
Or that these are all three separate timelines that are all running simultaneously on Christmas.
Awesome. Yeah.
So yeah. So
if you spent some time like during the story, like sort of lining up that like there were like anachronistic time frames.
Yeah.
Like so that each, like when we meet Santa Claus and when we meet the conductor and when we meet the boy, they're all like from three different eras of time, showing different parts of this man's life and how he's all Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Like, that's really neat.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get. It was just trying to it was the time, because I think what Locked On was like when the know-it-all kid says, it's been like 5 minutes to midnight for 3 hours. We have all the time in the world. We have time to kill. And then Santa disappearing off into like time. It seemed like he just disappeared. It seemed like, okay, well, what if through the North Pole, somehow Santa has the ability to go back in time, or like the Polar Express is somehow time locked outside. And so within the Polar Express, you have, so the boy who's going through it, that's his first time going through that whole experience. The conductor, now he's been, so then the boy grew up, becomes the conductor. And then he becomes the facilitator on the Polar Express to make sure that to help other kids believe like in the same way that he did.
And then when Santa Claus passes away or whatever, he becomes the new Santa Claus.
He becomes the new Santa.
Oh, that's so cool. So you could really make that work.
Yeah, so the Polar Express thing is almost like the proving ground for the next Santa as they're helping these kids to learn to eventually then take on the mantle of being Santa. And so then that would help explain, why did Santa know where to show up? Why did he pick that one boy? It was like that Santa was setting up in the past the events that would lead him to then become
the Santa of the future. And like, so you send the Polar Express out to like teach kids a lesson. And like the longer they're on the Polar Express, we know the more they're not going to be Santa because they need to learn that lesson. So the boy goes once, but then he gets asked to come back as the conductor. And as the conductor, he teaches kids those lessons. And then eventually he gets chosen. Oh, that's so cool. That's really neat. Yeah. Oh, that's much cooler. I don't know if the time travel has enough to do about Christmas, but one of the things.
Well, that's the thing. It didn't really make sense.
No, but that's fine because
the three different timelines of it being the same person was like it would make sense why it was Tom Hanks being the same. Why he was all these different characters was that it was like, actually.
Because he's actually the same person. That's really neat, actually. I do like that a lot more than what the movie we got. I also did like that the way you talked about like everything that the boy sees is something he can't explain. Like, but that's very Kierkegaard. So Soren Kierkegaard has this idea called the leap of faith. That's where we get the term from, is from Soren Kierkegaard. And he basically talks about how, we, instead of picking something that makes logical sense, we should pick something that like appeals to our like emotional sense. So in terms of like faith, he says like you don't pick it because it makes sense. You take the leap because it's a leap because you can't trust your senses. Right, but you do it anyway. That's why it's a leap of faith, right? He uses this idea of like physically you can't see, but you have faith that something will catch you. So because you want to believe that something will catch you. That's why we use the term leap of faith. But no, I really like that. That's really, really cool. So like the time travel thing I think is awesome. I'm all about that. That was dope, man.
As soon as I heard that, I was just like, oh, that would actually, and then Tom Hanks being all the voices, it was like, oh, okay, here's an idea, and then just kind of.
And you didn't actually need to change a lot of the story.
That's the thing. I felt like
I did like how you kept most of the story pretty much the same. You were just like, well, let's just have more of an addendum in terms, or like a conclusion, even an appendix in terms of just like, let's bring this whole thing together. Why was Tom Hanks everyone?
Yeah. And like why, and like I think you could cut out some of the train travel to get there and replace it with more interactions between the kids to kind of help really explain what the point of this Polar Express train is. Or even having some times where you can like show weird anachronisms in time, like between Santa Claus and the conductor and the kids. And even it would have been neat if we have some of the kids coming from like clearly dressed in different kinds of clothing. Yeah, like it's gone around. It's been going around the world,
but not even around the world, like in time,
through time. Yeah,
so around the world, but and in time. So we're seeing like clothing that's clearly no longer of our time, like in the future and in the past, and so it becomes like ambiguous. Like the Polar Express is outside of time.
Yeah, it's just this Christmas entity that goes throughout.
I also like the idea, because I mean you answered the same question that I had, which the biggest question is what's the purpose of the Polar Express? Because Santa already has his sleigh that goes around the world and delivers presents to children. So what's the purpose of bringing them to the North Pole? But if this is all to teach children lessons and to create essentially like a time loop of Santa Claus.
a time loop that would always then lead to the next Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Like, I think part of it was also inspired by kind of the D&D explanation of how gods get their powers in kind of the Forgotten Realms universe, where it's all dependent on the amount of followers and the strength of their beliefs that determines the strength and prevalence of that particular deity.
Yeah.
The more follow.
I think that's based off of Terry Pratchett's Small Gods.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to hear more about that, you should definitely check in to next week's episode. No, the week after's episode, where we're doing Rise of the Guardians.
Ooh, that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, where my pitch is explicitly dealing with this idea. So spoilers.
Ooh, very nice. Okay, well
yeah.
then.
I'm sorry to cut you off there.
No, it's okay. No worries.
I just got really excited about that. But
Yeah.
That
was kind of what was inspiring.
The Polar Express.
I think it's one of those Christmas movies that I think had the potential for a lot more depth. And I think we've kind of explained that through both of our pitches that we've given. But yeah, it's one of those movies where if you're going to watch it now, it's weird. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. As a Christmas movie, it's kind of like, okay, but it's not one of the greatest. But at the same time, there's definitely potential.
Definitely wouldn't recommend unless you were going to go in doing your own CineCasters pitch.
Essentially, yeah.
Like if you want to write your pitch and send it to us, go for it. But other than it's a weird movie. It's not one that I would have picked, but I'm glad you picked it because I think we both came out with some outstanding pitches.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we definitely created. It was really a lot of fun creating these two stories. I think. Yeah.
Where can people find you?
People can find me on YouTube here on the CineCasters channel. You can find me on Facebook, also Instagram, and I think those are probably the main ones that I am currently active on.
You can find my band Robot Philosopher anywhere you listen to dope music like Spotify or Deezer or Apple Music or YouTube. You can also find more CineCasters content right here on YouTube, where we have, of course, our awesome podcast, as well as our video essay series called This Is a Thing, and bonus casts every other week from This Is a Thing. Plus, maybe in the new year, we'll have some new stuff we're working on, but all holiday stuff all of December. So a couple more episodes of that, and be sure to stay tuned. Peace out.